Hi folks, it's Wednesday, it's the 9th of April 2025. I'm in my recording studio, I'm in the recording studio where I'm recording the narrative for the documentary. I've got this lovely backdrop behind me because this is a video about the full moon that's coming up in 3 days' time, full moon in Libra. But actually, it's about a lot more than that. In recent times, the last full moon and the last new moon video I did, I talked about how the time at the end of March and the start of April was going to be absolutely bonkers. And I said that there's going to be a lot of hype and spin, and that sensible people are not going to buy into the BS that's going on around them, and they're going to trust their instincts rather than get caught up in all the hype and spin. Now, as I record this in the middle of the second week of April, the hype and spin is still around, and it is going to continue for the short-term future. So let's actually look at what's going on astrologically, and then I'm going to put it all together and try and make sense of it. So firstly, the full moon will be opposite the sun, and the sun will be conjunct Chiron. So straight away, a large number of people over this next week are going to be sabotaging themselves, shooting themselves in the foot, and ending up becoming the springboard for other people's success without those other people even saying thanks, let alone taking those poor people with them. So straight away, avoid self-sabotage. Over this next 2 weeks, Mercury, which has just stopped going retrograde, is inching forward slowly, very slowly. Because of this, over this next 2 weeks, Mercury is never going to be more than 4 degrees away from Neptune at the start of Aries. Yes, Mercury's going to move into Aries in a few days' time, but it's going to be close to Neptune for this whole of this next 2 weeks. A Mercury-Neptune conjunction, it's not really difficult, but it can lead to woolly thinking, confusion, brain fog. It can also lead to incredible artisticness, psychic ability, intuitive capacity, and an incredibly artistic mind, particularly with words. But with Mercury conjunct Neptune over this next couple of weeks, it does point to a lot of waters being muddied. So again, don't buy into the narrative. Don't believe all the news. Don't believe all the hype and spin. Jupiter and Uranus are the only 2 planets that are not actively involved big time over this coming couple of weeks. Venus is. As I speak, Venus was actually conjunct Saturn in the sky a couple of days ago. Venus is still retrograde. It's not going to start moving forward for another 5 days. But Saturn is inching forward in Pisces. Venus is standing still in Pisces. So the Venus-Saturn conjunction, which has been going on for this last week and a half, is going to continue for this next 2 weeks. Venus is never going to be more than 1 or 2 degrees away from Saturn for this next 2 weeks. So it's particularly impacting on all of you born in the last, say over the period of the 16th to the 19th of March, or the 17th to the 20th of September. That Venus-Saturn thing's hitting you hard. Now Venus conjunct Saturn isn't necessarily a bad aspect. Yes, it makes you struggle for finances when you're young. It also makes people born with that aspect attracted to people 7 years older to them when they're younger, or 7 years younger than them when they're older. But it also guarantees that the older you get, the more prudent and wiser you become with money. And I've never seen anyone with Venus conjunct Saturn who's genuinely poor. They always have enough. They can always pay their rent, pay their mortgage, put food on the table, clothes on their back, roof over their heads. They don't always have everything they want. They always have everything they need. So we've got the Sun conjunct Chiron. Mercury conjunct Neptune for the next 2 weeks. Venus conjunct Saturn for the next 2 weeks. So it's a lot of conjunctions going on. With Venus conjunct Saturn, the financial affairs of the world are not going to stabilise in the next 2 weeks. With Mercury conjunct Neptune, there's going to be a lot of hype and spin, and there's going to be some people who are going to be cast as villains, victims and martyrs by the bullies of the world. None of this is going to stick, and it's all going to balance out once we're into the end of April. But you may notice an omission in what I've talked about so far. Mars, as I speak, is currently at 26 degrees of Cancer, and it's picking up speed. When you've looked at the night sky over this last month, 2 months, the triangle between Mars and Castor and Pollux in Gemini has been so noticeable. And now Mars has changed. It's no longer making a triangle. It's underneath Pollux and Castor and beginning to pull away from them. As we get closer and closer into the end of April, so Mars will move into Leo. And as soon as it does so, it moves into Leo on the 18th of April. And then it immediately opposes Pluto for the 3rd and final time. Mars opposite Pluto happened initially for the first time at the end of Cancer at the very start of November 2024. It then retrograded at around 1 degree of Leo in the first week of January 2025. Now it's going to oppose Pluto at 3 degrees of Leo, 3 degrees of Aquarius, at the end of April. Mars opposite Pluto is a trademark of explosions. But when I say explosions, I don't necessarily mean bombs or volcanoes or anything like that, although it could be seen as that. I'm also talking about explosions as of explosions of anger, explosions of joy, although that's not that likely, where things are suddenly and incisively made out to be much worse than they actually are. It is the trademark of a surgical strike. And I suggest that as we get into the end of April, the rhetoric, the hype and the spin of recent weeks since mid-March, early mid-March, is building to some type of crescendo. Now, I've been on record a number of times on various different platforms for a long time talking about how mid-late March, early to mid-April of 2025 is an absolutely pivotal time for the long-term future. But the decisions made at that time will send fishing lines into the future and plant seeds for the long term. And now we're looking at a Mars-Pluto opposition at the end of all of this process. And that is going to be some type of finale that is not going to be compromising, adaptive, tolerant. It is going to be yes, no, black, white. Actions will be taken, decisions will be made. There will be no room for negotiation or compromise. And then it all dies down. Then we enter into a less hectic time. I'm not going to say calm, because we've got to get through the Jupiter moving into Cancer, squaring Saturn and Neptune in the second week of June before I can say calm. But it is safe to say that by the end of April, 70% of the challenges of 2025 are over. There's still a couple of really sharp points coming up later in the year, but they're standalone. So coming back to the full moon, it would be very easy to buy into the narrative and to sabotage yourself and shoot yourself in the foot by believing everything you're being told. The intelligent ones will go, this too will pass. Trust your instincts. Don't overstretch. Don't overcommit. Not everything is as it seems. And once you're into the end of April, there's going to be a much greater sense of clarity dawning in a way that shows signs of becoming permanent. Personally, I can't wait. So for the next couple of weeks, folks, be cautious, okay? Don't take silly risks and don't let your buttons get pushed. But I do recommend dancing. It's great therapy and it helps you let off steam in ways that doesn't do anyone else any harm. So go and have a good dance. Catch you later, folks. Bye.